Good afternoon and welcome to another EEAP safety webinar. I'm Rick Roman sitting here with
Michael Crowley,
the president of EEAP, and today we've got some more valuable information for you here.
We're hoping so, Rick. We're hoping so.
We're going to be talking about how you can prepare for a Cal OSHA visit or inspection, whichever word you prefer to use, and see if we might be some help for you to be able to identify some cases where the inspection might not be quite such a surprise that you might actually be expecting it, so that you can hopefully prepare for that. So what we're going to be talking about is how likely it is to get a Cal OSHA visit or a citation resulting from that visit, what can prompt a Cal OSHA visit, and what Cal OSHA will be looking for or might request from you during that visit, and how you can prepare for that visit.
One of the first things as we go on, Rick, that we need to remember is that when you do have Cal OSHA come to your location, keep calm. Don't panic. It's all going to be fine. These people are a lot of times just wanting to get some information and go back and think of things. Remember, the inspectors themselves, they don't really have a tendency to issue citations. It's the district manager that issues them. So these are basically information gatherers. Staying on their good side is always a good tip. Am I right, Rick?
That's absolutely the case. It always goes bad when you irritate them.
That's true.
So anyway, let's talk about how likely it is to be visited by Cal OSHA.
All right.
Last year, in the calendar year, from January 1st to December 31st of 2014, Cal OSHA conducted 8,025 inspections.
Lovely.
Now, you might think, based on how many businesses there probably are in California, that might not be an absolutely huge number. But depending on the circumstance, and we'll get into the different things that cause their visits, then obviously your likeliness increases.
Yeah, if you're like if you're like an accountant, you're probably not on the top 10 of the people cited. That's for sure, Rick. I agree.
Exactly. So you can look out of that 8,000 site visits, 5,054 citations were issued. That's 63%. So that's basically about 2 out of 3 times that Cal OSHA goes out and does a visit, it results in citations, Michael.
It does, and so remember that when you're in trades like manufacturing and construction and agriculture and you know, landscaping, these are the trades that really go up in percentages. So the numbers of how many businesses in California, this is taking in consideration of everybody. But if you fall into one of those categories that I've named, you've got to understand that the 8,000 really goes up fast, and they're really funding Cal OSHA nowadays, and so that all the offices, as we talk to them, are looking to gain more and more inspectors because they have so much work and referrals out there. They're looking to get that done.
All right, so as we look at the things that can prompt a Cal OSHA visit, so the number one reason someone might see a Cal OSHA inspector is because they've had a serious injury, Michael. Either a death, and I'll have you go into some of these. Obviously, a death doesn't need much explanation, but dismemberment and gross disfigurement and hospitalization. If you can elaborate a little bit on what some of those things consist of that causes you to have to report these things.
First of all, Rick, whose idea was it to put the egg in there that was broken?
Well, that was Carla, as usual.
That is very clever. All right, so we know what death is. It's an egg getting broken and dying, right? I guess that's what Carla's trying to say. When it comes to what was the next one?
Dismemberment.
Thank you. The dismemberment. They really want to talk about something getting cut off. That really is going to be what they're talking about. Now, that seems to be an easy definition, but you've got to make sure that if it's the tip of an ear with a little bit of cartilage, it could be a deep cut on their finger and it chipped a piece of the bone off. These all could be named as partial amputations, and if these wonderful doctors out there name it as that, then you are talking the dismemberment or an amputation of some kind that would rule in that favor. So you've really got to stay on top of it if it's a deep cut. So you got to make sure there was no bone loss or anything like that was chipped, and be familiar with what that first doctor's report's going to come out at, or you could get caught by surprise and have some major problems. So just don't think it's just a cut, we're moving on. The next one that he's talking about is gross disfigurement. This one's a bit vague. My standard for that is, you know, if you look at it and you're like, my gosh, that is ugly, you might be falling into that category because of the simple reason that it's going to scar, it's going to be disfigured, it's not going to go back so that you won't be able to tell at all. And this rule is so vague. I've heard district managers say one thing, then another. So if you get a bad problem, you're going to want to call us on that so that we can see it, take a look at it, and make that judgment. But the problem I have with gross disfigurement, Rick, is that really is one that might come down the road a little bit. Obviously, in the beginning, if you got bone coming out of your skin, that's obviously right that it's a serious accident. But it could be that the disfigurement, the employee is clearly disfigured at the point of healing, and it's still there, and that might cause it.
Yes. So, so the important thing to know here, as I'll go back to the slide, is you can see that in these cases that you have to report to Cal OSHA within 8 hours, and the emergency services, and we've talked about this in other webinars, the emergency services, the hospitals, the paramedics, the fire department, they are all mandated to report these types of injuries. So even if you don't report it, Cal OSHA is going to find out about it, and they're going to cross-reference as to whether or not you reported it, and if you didn't, well, then you're almost guaranteed a visit.
And that brings us into the last one here, the hospitalization for any period other than observation. If you're hospitalized in the state of California, you really need to make sure we're calling Cal OSHA. Now, Rick is talking about the hospitals and the 911, I mean, not 911, but the ambulance drivers, the fire department calling. But remember, if that employee lawyers up, that accident attorney is going to ask, it's going to be one of the first questions they ask, did Cal OSHA get called? So I'm always telling people, you're not going to hide from Cal OSHA. One way, it's going to slip out, and when it does, it'll be 10 times worth. If you have an accident, this is why you pay the insurance, this is why you've done the things prior, and you need to be ready for that, and this is part of what it is. To be able to have one of these things happen, when you put them on paper like this, Rick, it really looks like it's a clear-cut choice. But a lot of the times it isn't, because you don't know how long they're in for the hospital. You don't know if they're being hospitalized or they're just being treated, right? You don't know if it's going to be a gross disfigurement down the road. And so you've got a whole hodgepodge of things happening. You should call us. Yes. If you are a current client of ours, you can call us anytime, day or night, to the 800 number you see on the screen. If it's after hours, it will leave a voicemail, and that will go to my phone, and I can call you back immediately when we get there, so that I can hear the story and walk you through it. Because this problem of reporting within 8 hours, it's a mandatory $8,000 fine, like the slide said.
5,000.
Thank you, Rick. The $5,000 fine, like the slide says, and it's very difficult to negotiate. Very difficult to negotiate.
All right, let's get on to the next here. Is anonymous complaints from either disgruntled employees, business neighbors, residential neighbors, and competitors.
Yep.
So with the obviously the disgruntled employees, that could be someone who's either just irritated and trying to cause problems for you, or maybe someone who's complained about an issue and hasn't received resolution, and so they're taking the next step here. But how does this process normally work when somebody, because Cal OSHA is mandated to follow up on complaints, and how does that process usually play out, Michael?
Well, they have a lot of ways that they'll follow up through the Cal OSHA process. Cal OSHA really wants to follow up with these, and their vision, as I've talked to them, is really that there's a lot of employees out there that are being subjected to bad employers, and they really need to follow up with that. Now, if that is true or not, or if that is the standard or the exception, that's another conversation. But when they get these complaints, they're going to follow up. Now, one of the ways they do is with a letter. It really, I find the letter goes out when they really don't think there is a whole great deal of danger, number one, or they're not sure the complaint is really valid, and so they do get a letter out there. Those need to be addressed quickly, in a timely manner, and professional. And if you get one of those, we'd love to help you with you, walk you through, because it's hard to say what you should and should not put in a letter like that. The second way that they do it is they just frankly come out and say, hello, how you doing? We're here to do an inspection for you. So you need to make sure you're ready for that, and that's the whole point of this conversation, to get your head ready in a spot to be able to accept that. But if they think there's a threat, yeah, Rick, they'll just come walk right out there and say hello. I mean, an unfriendly employee or a disgruntled employee, you be as nice as you can to your employees, and you treat them with love and respect. I don't have a problem with that within my company, but yes, every once in a while you do have a problem with an employee who doesn't feel like their needs are getting addressed, and they need to go outside the line. what you'll find is we have an 800 number, like we do on the screen right here, but we have an anonymous reporting sticker that we sell on our system. And what we do is it's a sticker you can just put up all out through your shop. So if your employees do have a problem or they would like to complain anonymously something, that number will come directly to us, and then we can notify you anonymously, of course, because that's the rule. But we then can bypass Cal OSHA and make sure we can take care of this problem in-house, which rightfully it should get taken care of, and we can do the right thing. And so I do recommend that you do get one of those stickers from us, if not a couple. They're in English and Spanish.
And again, it's, you know, with the two ways that they handle this, obviously if they just show up and you had somebody making a complaint you weren't aware of, you might say, well, you weren't really expecting that visit. But if you've already received the letter, then just like if you've had the accident, you pretty much should be expecting it and need to prepare. And we'll talk about that a little bit here as we move forward on getting prepared on that. So the third thing that will prompt a Cal OSHA inspection or visit would be an XMod rate that is above 1.25.
It's the happiest guy in a wheelchair I've ever seen in my life.
Now, that rate is determined through your workers' compensation claims. Again, that's something that we've done a webinar on in the past. If you want to get more information about that, obviously you can contact your workers' comp representative and find out what your XMod is. But if you were above 1.25, you're pretty much in a circumstance where you can pretty much say you should be expecting a Cal OSHA visit, Michael.
You've got to expect it. I mean, the 1.25 factor is real. They do come out on this. Now, what happens is this. They send you a letter, not to get too much into it. We've done a webinar on this, but they do send out a letter that is giving you an option to use the consultation service, or OSHA can come out and do a visit if you don't respond at all. And everybody asks us, what should we do? Should we invite them out? Well, at that point, you've got no choice. You've got to accept the consultation. Now, this is what we find about the consultation. They're good people. They have a job to do, and they're going to give you a lot of tips. And what I do recommend is you let us come out to your facilities prior to that. It doesn't have to be included in your normal monthly service, but the reality is we can come out extra and make sure your shop is tip-top shape on a lot of things. The consultants through the OSHA system, everyone is differently. They're trained with the same pattern, but just how individuals go, they all have a different mindset about sometimes what they'd like to see. Our job is to make sure we comply with what they have to say. Now, they will tell you that they will not cite you, and that is true. But if they ask you to fix something or abate something and you refuse, or it's too expensive for you, the reality of it is that they will refer you, and by law have to refer you to the Cal OSHA side if you do not fix what they tell you to fix in the time period that they've told you to fix. And so it's kind of a catch-22. Yes, they do not fine you. But if they ask you to do something you don't do it, you have a problem. So we need to get your 125 down, and we need to get your shop up to shape and figure out solutions that doesn't break the bank, but we can get everything in line.
And like you mentioned, that's still a better alternative than refusing that consultation. At least you know what they want you to fix. You can fix the issues rather than letting them come out with the enforcement arm and just issue citations, and we'll discuss it later.
I agree, Rick. I agree.
So again, another one where the visit should not necessarily be such a surprise. Let's go ahead to the next here.
Number 4.
Number 4 is a follow-up visit from a previous visit. Anytime you've had serious violations in an OSHA citation, they are mandated federally to follow up and come back and make sure that down the road that you're in compliance. They often look for repeat violations, which can get very costly, and the repeat violations don't even have to necessarily be the exact thing. If they find to be similar in kind, Michael, if you could talk a little bit about that with the similar in kind and how that follow-up visits and the 3-year probation that you're essentially on.
When we're doing a Cal OSHA case on somebody and working their case and we're getting them fines down, we're talking with Cal OSHA, the district manager, and we're telling them very, very real truths about your business, about how well you're doing, what we're going to be doing in the future, what we've done to fix these things, how we're protecting the employees. And the Cal OSHA inspectors believe us. Why? Because here at EEAP, we always tell the truth. Am I right, Rick? And so with that being said, when CalOSHA does a follow-up visit and you haven't done the things that EEAP has kind of outlined and talked to you with you beforehand and then told and communicated that to the district manager, it doesn't go extremely well. And so these follow-up visits are creating a big problem with people when it comes to this. You should anticipate a follow-up visit. If it takes place or not, that's another question, but we must anticipate the follow-up visit. A lot of these inspectors will want to go back because they feel personally invested in the safety of the employees, and I do think that's very admirable of them. They really have an invested point to make sure people, this is a calling in some ways for them to make sure they come out there. With that being said, we want to give our best foot forward. If you don't fix these things, or let's say you have 10 press breaks, and you guard one of them, the one that actually created the problem or they cited you on, but you have 9 others that are not guarded. That's where these repeat fines come in. That's where they say, all right, you obviously just did it just to get by, and we need to come down on you a little bit harder. This is what we're here to protect you from, and you just got to be careful of that.
Okay. Now this 5th one here, this is one that's a little hard for you to anticipate.
Yeah.
These are their planned inspections where they go out, you could call it a sting or a sweep, but they will go out and either pick an industry because maybe there's been a rash of injuries in a particular industry, and they'll just go out and look at a whole bunch of these types of business, or they'll take a geographic location like you see here in the slide, and they'll just go knock doors around town there and surprise. And these are often accompanied by other departments here, as you see the EPA, AQMD, Department of Labor, and they are coming out, and these are harder to anticipate, which is obviously why you always want to be in general compliance. But Michael, talk a little bit about some of these visits and what can happen with some of these other departments as well.
Well, you know, they are hard. Rick, what you said was true. This is a very hard thing to anticipate. But CalOSHA will see a job site happening. They're driving to work. They're on the weekends with their families and friends, and they see something in the areas they live, they will come back. And so what you got to make sure is that your facilities outside look good. But if your neighbors, let's say you have a business down the road that has issues, that's doing a similar business than you are, and they're down the road and you know their shop looks like hell. I mean, I'm talking about it is just a rat fest down there. You really need to make sure you tighten up your ship even more, because if they go down below and they see that business and you're within that square footage, they might just do a sting on everybody about there. Because I do agree that businesses have a tendency to stick together and kind of do the same thing. I know it's weird, but after doing this business for so long and we go to one shop, you can see all the shops in a certain area are either letting themselves go in certain ways or they're keeping themselves up in certain ways. And so your neighbors do have an effect on what you're doing. If they have major chemicals hanging out there that you think the EPA is going to have a problem with, then you're going to want to make sure you clean up your act, because you know they're coming. At some point, the AQMD or whoever it is, CalOSHA, they're going to come down the pipeline, and you want to make sure all your ducks are in a row. We can take care of your CalOSHA stuff. I've got people that help you with AQMD and EPA stuff. We really have a team put in place to help you with this. You just got to make sure you're prepared to listen and ask, really.
Right. So those are the things that will mainly cause a visit. So let's talk a little bit about the types of things that CalOSHA typically will ask for when they come out. You'll see here in the slide we've got a typical request sheet that they'll fill out, and they'll check off some of the things. And again, this depends upon the reason that they're there and what's most likely that they're going to be asking for. But, you know, Michael, they're looking for things. Make sure you got safety programs. They want to make sure you've got training records, your inspection records, any injury reports if you've had accidents, and so forth.
When you have CalOSHA come out to your facility and they're out there, what you'll find is they're going to ask you for a lot of things, paperwork, documents, and everything. You got to keep calm, like we said in the beginning. This is going to be just fine. These people are people too, and they're just looking to do their job. So my recommendation is if they want to see an area, show them the area. You do have the right to ask for a search warrant. I don't recommend that. It's just going to piss people off. I've never seen one go well, but they will get a search warrant. I'm telling you, they're not going to have a problem getting it. And so what I'm saying is, if they want to see something, show it to them. Show that to them. If you have something in your shop that you're saying right now, my gosh, I cannot have them see this, that's what you're going to call us for. That's why the number Yeah, right there. At the bottom of the screen is going to be there for you to call, because the reality is we want to help you clean that up. But let's say they're out there at your job site or at your workplace and they're asking you for documentation. My recommendation is that you ask them for all the paperwork that they're requesting in a written form. And what you'll see is this document. Rick, you mind going back to the slide?
Sure.
All right, so here on the slide, you can see the first one is going to be some facility layout. Next one is the Cal OSHA 200, the Cal OSHA 5020, and also is the first doctor's report and that kind of stuff, the Cal OSHA 5021. So it goes down the line here. What you'll find is, as you're looking at this is the kind of stuff that they're going to be asking for. We focus on this form when we build your documentation and we put everything together. We're very familiar with this form, but this is what you want them to hand you before they leave the first time. If they're asking you for records, do not run around your business with a chicken with your head cut off. Relax. If you can put that into a writing, I would be glad to get that to you right away. A lot of the inspectors will give you a week, 5, 6 days to be able to deliver this stuff. You're going to send us this record. We're going to then have the record go through the documents that we can provide, that we've created and that we've been working with you, but there's going to be some that we can't, such as the workers' compensation insurance. Obviously, we're not going to have anything to do with that. So we'll work with you as a team to gather this stuff together so that you can personally send it out and look like the rock star and really do some great things with Cal OSHA. What they ask for is what they'll get. No more, no less. And that's a key spot also. They start asking for your injury illness prevention program. Well, my friend, let's send it to them. But we don't need to send them every other program that you've got in the book. Let's send them what specifically is. That's what we're geared to help for, so that we can decide and decipher for you, this is the section you need, this is the section they're looking for, and we work with them on that note.
Yes. Okay, let's take a look at here.
All right,
now
preparing for a Cal OSHA
inspection.
inspection.
Preparing.
Yeah.
Yep. And again, this basically kind of goes back to what's on that checklist and making sure that you have those things. Depending on, if they're coming because of a serious injury, they're probably going to be looking for things like, training records. They're going to look for possibly maintenance records of equipment that the employee might have been injured on. Here, some of the talk about the documentation, and for those, most of you here are clients of ours, and this documentation is in the client center, but it talks about some of the pages there that need to be signed and so forth, Michael.
Well, there is pages in the documentation that you need to have signed. One of them is the last page of the IIPP. The person who's named responsible should sign the document. So if you're printing your manuals, which is great, you can print those and sign them. If you're not printing the manuals generally, what you'll do is you'll just print up that last page, sign it, scan it to us, and we'll put it in your document. Obviously, I have a hard time creating your signatures without you giving them to me. The Code of Safe Practice, there's a signature page in. We can talk about that another time. The last page of the emergency action plan needs to be filled out, and that is site specific. So if you've only got the one factory, you just put in the information there. Where's the name of the hospital? Where's the emergency services? But that page would change if you're on a job site, and that's how they become job site specific, by changing that page. There are some inventory lists and the hazardous comm programs and whatnot like that you can do, but the majority of the time is you need to be familiar with your book. You need to go through them. We've created them for you. You need to go through them to be familiar, because when you're preparing for the Cal OSHA inspection and they start asking for these things, you've obviously asked them ahead of time for the document request. But you need to be comfortable with this beforehand so that you can relax. You never relax, no matter how many times I tell you that, unless you're confident of what you have. So you really need to make sure you look at this book. I think you'll be very impressed. And if you're not, I'll make you impressed by changing whatever we need to do or adjusting it to make sure you're happy as a clam. But the documentation is going to be the crowning jewel, and this is why. When they come out to ask you for your documentation, they will be able to tell if you know what you're doing based off of that. So if you have the documentation, you have the SDS sheets, you all have this, then you look like a rock star. For example, they come out. They ask you for this stuff. You pleasantly say, I have all that. I'd be glad to get it to you right away. Document request, please. They send you the document request. They take a bazillion pictures of what they're doing. They're going back to their district manager. They're putting together their cases. They're waiting for the district manager to review them and sign these cases. But they know you have all the programs. They know you're doing all this. It will be something that will reduce the fines, I promise. Nobody has been punished more for having documentation. They only get punished more when they don't have it as much. And that really is what you need to stay focused on.
And on the same lines of documentation, your training records. I mean, you got to be documenting, and if we're doing your training for you, we're collecting the signatures, and they're all loaded up in your client center, so you have access to all of that. Your inspection records are all in there for you as well, so you have that. The labor law posters. Speaking of which, Michael, the labor law posters.
The labor law posters. We just had a conversation about that today. We do have labor law posters. Lori ordered. I won't even say the number. It's basically immoral. It's just too many posters. I can't even imagine we'll use them. But every year we sell that many. Guys, if you need the labor law posters, make sure you have these up. I'll have the 2016s in a couple months. You can send some emails into the office. Call you when your trainer, your inspector, your schedulers call in. You can call them and email them for them. I think we're selling them for what nowadays, Rick? 25 a piece?
They're about 25 bucks.
We buy them, we sell them for the cost. We buy them for $25 a piece, English and Spanish. They're honestly the best prices around you can get them at. And please, 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 just let us sell them to you.
All right, so some of the other things that you obviously want to keep up, again, back to that list, your OSHA 300 logs. Yep. This is something they're going to want to look at. If they're there as a result of an injury, they're certainly going to want to look at things like that. Your injury reports. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure you have your permits and variances up to date if you need them for those. Michael talked about the facility layout. Make sure you've got that posted. And the workers' compensation, which again is not something we can help you with, but you want to make sure you have that. We have seen people get cited for not having workers' compensation insurance. So you want to make sure that you have all that stuff in place.
Man, you're really running, I hate to say naked, but you're really running naked without workers' comp there, Rick. I mean, that's a bad deal.
Yes, that's pretty bad.
My gosh,
that gets costly.
Listen, I love workers' comp agents, and we work with a lot of them. And let me just say this: that if you're having a problem with workers' comp and you don't have it, or you feel like your rates are too high, you just let me know. I've got a host of referrals to give you. I don't have a name that I'm willing to give over this webinar, but I'm telling you, if you have a question, please let us know. Let me just do this plug for those few invites that we've done to people who are not clients. Let me just say, if you would like a free on-site evaluation, and I'm saying anywhere in the state of California, we will come out and review your documentation, your training records, everything you got, and give you a free assessment to let you know where you stand, where you're at. Sometimes knowledge is just really important. So here's the free plug. So there you go. All right, the next poster here that we've got for you is we have created this poster. Carla the Wonderful has made this for us. It is a poem that we found, and it really means a lot to us. This is not a very quick read poster by chance. What it is this poster is something that you might put up in your break rooms. We have it at free of charge. Can we load that poster up for them for a download or something?
Yep, it's going to be loaded here in just a second. As soon as it pops up on your screen here, you'll be able to download and print this here and put it out for your,
please.
There.
It's free of charge. If you do need this in a bigger size of 11 by 17, we would be honored to print that and laminate that for you. You can see on the side of your screen the Download Now button. To the millions of people watching this webinar, the millions of people, I do recommend that you do download this poster. This is a really great poem about the importance of not looking the other way and how we all do dumb things, and sometimes we see dumb things and we think to ourselves, I've done that before. I'm not going to create a problem. But let me say, I think it's very important to be able to know that doing some of the dumb things in this picture does equal to the casket. And we are going to be starting questions and answers, and I know there is a 30-second delay from when I say this to getting it. So it always goes a little bit low in the beginning, but we always get bombarded with a ton of questions. Now, Rick, have we had any questions come through just yet, sir?
Yes, we do have some questions here.
I figured we did.
And also, before I get on to the questions that I have here, I just wanted to thank those of you. You should have all noticed that when you got your invite, that we posted basically a thing for you here to be able to make some suggestions, a survey, so for you to be able to make some suggestions on some future webinars that you'd like us to present for you. And we had several people that responded to that, and we got some very good suggestions, so we're going to be going ahead and create some webinars on some of those topics. But in that, we also got a couple of questions. Some people put questions in there instead of suggestions, so we'll take a look at some of those also. But let's take a look here. It says, someone's asking, where do we post the 300 logs?
You post the 300 logs at a conspicuous place within your facility where the employees see. So that's difficult to say, a break room, but sometimes you don't have break rooms. You need to post the 300 logs at a conspicuous place where your employees see. That's difficult if you're running your business out of your home or your garage and you don't have a lot of employees go there. So that's just tricky that you got to just work with. But that's generally where you post it, Ricky.
Yes, and if you, again, that's a webinar that we did on the 300 logs. We do that one in January because everyone's getting ready to post those at the beginning of February. They got to be up from the 1st of February till the end of April. So you can go back and watch our webinar. We'll probably be doing the same topic again in January just to refresh and see if there's any updates to that program. But you can get all the answers of what you have to do because there's some circumstances where you might even have to mail some of the information to employees who might never come into the office if they're always out in the field.
Amazing. We love regulations, don't we, in California?
Next, okay.
Regulations. The world is filled with regulations.
Are we getting a copy of the slides? If you'd like a copy of the slides, send me an email, rick@eeap.net, and I will be happy to get those slides for you.
And don't forget that after the end of this webinar, Rick always sends out a replay to you so that you can watch this thousands of times over to make sure that you know exactly what me and Rick Wellman look like and you get the information exactly down.
Okay, next questions. What if you get a surprise visit and you have a clean record, low mod rate, no accidents? Do you let them in? And is this if it's a complaint, why can't they tell you what it is?
Okay, so if you have a clean record and you're just the most beautiful people in the world, the complaint by chance really is a non-issue, and this is why. They can do surprise visits without telling you for no reason at all, and you have the option not to let them in every time unless they have a search warrant, and then you have a problem. So remember, you're asking them, tell me about the complaint. They might not want to tell you about the complaint because they don't want you to hide anything from you, and they don't know you very well. Remember, I know you. I know you're an honest guy. I know you're an honest guy or girl, not to sound sexist at all, and you're never going to lie. But the reality is they don't. And so if they come out to your facility and they're working with you and they want to see some things, they frankly don't need to tell you in the beginning that it's because of a complaint. And if by chance they do, the reality of it is you have nothing to hide. You should be confident in where you stand. And if you're not, you know the exact area you're not confident in. And that's what we're here for, to have that conversation with you and to get you into a spot where you will be confident.
Okay, the next question, it says here, why is there a Fed OSHA and a Cal OSHA? They seem to have different standards.
They do. They do. Now, in most of the country, there is they only use the Fed OSHA standard. A few of the states have adopted their own state programs, which is legal. The federal government allows. Most of those state programs basically are just duplicated the federal program, but they run it in-house. I believe they do that because the money that they generate really stays locally instead of going to the federal government, and the state can control the fines. This is going to sound terrible, but use that as a taxation, if you will, to help employees and businesses comply, but they keep that money in-house. It's smart. If I was a state, I would change over to a state program too. Cal OSHA, though, is one of the most strictest and has most of the highest laws in the country.
And every state program, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, they all have to at least adhere to a minimum of the federal standards. So generally, the states that have state programs exceed what, particularly here in California. So it's not a matter of which will you see, either or. Cal OSHA is who operates here in California. Fed OSHA operates in some of the other states that don't have their own state programs.
States with high unions, they usually have their own state programs. I'm not saying anything bad about unions necessarily, but they do. They're these state programs. We're actually writing documentation for the entire country, all of the programs, because a lot of our companies do businesses elsewhere, and so we have documentation for the surrounding states today, and we're writing them for the further states off there. And we're hoping to be able to launch a national product for that in the next year or two.
All right, got a great question here. What if you're on a construction site? Where do you post the required posters and keep the required documentation?
Number one, you post it in the job site trailer. Your next statement is, I don't have a job site trailer. I get that. So you would post them. Really what you do is you put them on a board and you put it by your truck. If that seems ridiculous, which it does sound ridiculous, you can make a folder with all of these things within the folder. If you're really fancy, which you are because you are a client of us, you can call us and we can put this on your app. Now, on your app, you have the documentation already on the app. All your employees can have the app. It's free to you if you're a client of ours. And we can upload other things to the app to make sure we can comply with almost all of this so that you can have it on your phone. So if Cal OSHA comes out to a job site and asks you for a copy of your Code of Safe Practices, your IPP, you would just open up your phone and show it. Now, the rule is that it has to be available to the employees. Since the employees have iPhones or Androids or some sort of smartphone, and your next statement is, no, they don't. Well, somebody on your job site does. They technically have access. A foreman, one of the employees, or two of the employees. It would be equal to the binder because
yes, the binder you're only gonna have one binder. It's gonna be in the foreman's truck, and if they want to see it, they're gonna have to ask him for it anyway. You're not printing a binder for every employee.
So it's basically the same, and the district managers I've met with have been very okay with this, and so we have been able to utilize this and been a great success. So if that question is a concern for you, you should utilize the app. If you don't know what the app is, give us a call, ask for Rick or one of the service reps, and we will be glad to set you up. Make sure you have that and you're ready to go.
Okay, let's see here. The email again is rick, R-I-C-K, at EEAP.net.
Trying to keep it simple. Rick at EEAP.net.
I'm guessing they want the slides. Okay. We use many temporary workers. What can I do to protect myself if a visit is prompted because of the temp employees?
Well, we've been having some issues on that. That's another topic. I won't digress. If you have temp employees, it doesn't matter if they're temp or not. You must treat them as your employee. Cal OSHA will still cite you even if they're temp employees. Construction site, factory, manufacturing, I don't care what it is. If you're using temp employees, on a workers' comp scale, there are some things that are going on there, but on a Cal OSHA scale, you need to treat them as your employees. Yes, the staffing company will get cited too, but you will too because they consider it a multi-employer work site. So really, you're going to demand the staffing company give you better employees, but you're going to take the control in your own hands and do your own training. This is why you have us. You're going to allow us to train the staffing employees, but you're not going to let these these temporary employees start a job without being properly trained. And so you've got to really look internally on how you deal with these temporary employees and how you get them trained. You need some ideas? Call us. I'd love to meet out with you or have my general manager go out there and sit with you to be able to explain this or brainstorm some ideas to get you up there, and there's no additional charge for that. We want to be of service for you.
All right, let me see here. If we are off-site for jobs, how do we provide facility layout? Or would it just be for the yard?
Well, you have a facility layout. You need to do it at your job site trailer, number one. No job site trailer. You need to have something that you have the facility layout on. They call this a job-specific IPP or a site-specific safety plan. That really means that you're filling out the emergency action plan to the exact location. You've changed anything in the book that needs to be to get site-specific. But more importantly, what you've done is you've created a spot for these posters. I've seen some guys laminate all this stuff, put it to a piece of plywood, lay in the bed of their truck, and take it out when they get to a job site. I've seen some guys find a fence. I've seen some guys go to the general contractor and ask for some space to put up stuff for them so they can keep it there. And I've seen just a standard binder. But the reality is you do have a lot of choices in that area. If you want to utilize our app a little bit more, give us a call. We'd love to do that for you.
All right, let's see here. One of them here is saying, so they're in the process of an intent to classify citation. They're stating employer did not assure the employees had access to suitable, cool, potable water free of charge, when in fact they have plenty of cold water when they leave the yard in the morning and at each job site.
You got to provide them with cold water that's drinkable. And you cannot just say, well, they had it in the morning when you left. So whatever happened in the rest of the day, that's their own dang fault. You cannot do that. You must ensure that they have cold water all day long at free to their convenience. So if you have to mandate that they keep it in the bed of their truck and ice chest, that's your job. But you cannot just provide it one time a day. They leave the job and you say, hey, it's on your own. you just got to go and do your own thing. I'm going to give you an example of a client in the past, basically. What happened is they were in the farm industry. They had a gentleman on a tractor, and he drives tractors through the field. Now, the farmer didn't feel like he needed to go out there and water his employee every 2 hours or hour just to make sure he had enough water. So he provided a safe spot in the morning to gather and fill up the water that he had. The problem that the farmer had was the guy drank all the water, and it still wasn't enough. And so the gentleman had heat exhaustion out there. The factors that were there that we didn't know about in the beginning were this. The employee was diabetic, and that problem made his dehydration even worse. There are some medicines and some things that you don't know about as the employer. And so what you're really talking about is a combination of two things. Number one, you must ensure they have water throughout the day and they get it. That's your job to ensure. Two, you need to make sure your employees know and are trained on medical conditions, just generally, that if you're taking medicines, talk to your pharmacist and ask about these things, because this guy had never thought that his diabetes would be a factor. And so your question really is tied to a lot of different things. But if your expectation is that you should just be able to give them water in the morning, and then it's their job to do it, that is insufficient under the law. It will just not hold up in court, I can promise you.
All right, we've got a couple more questions here. Someone's asking regarding the required posters. They're asking, what if they're the subcontractor on a job site? As a subcontractor, are they required to have these postings, or is it just the general contractor who's responsible for this stuff?
Well, they're all supposed to have it. As a subcontractor, you're supposed to have your own posters. I mean, the general contractor has his trailer. He certainly is not going to be too thrilled with all your employees walking through his trailer looking at the posters. So you are required to have your own stuff there. You need to look at yourself as a standalone business there that needs to comply with all the regulations of Cal OSHA. If you have specific posters that you'd like to talk about, I'd love to give you some solutions with that. But yes, you have to have your own posters.
All right. Let's see here. This is a Sitemap on a JSSA the same as the facility layout?
Yes. Your JSA, I love acronyms. Safety people love acronyms. My gosh, we have too many acronyms. Basically, those kind of forms that you have a layout of the document, that's fine. You just need to have access to it. Like I said, if you don't have a job site trailer and you don't have like a big plywood board on the wall to utilize, you've got to put them somewhere, and that could be in a binder in the foreman's truck of somewhat that could be taken care of. So yes, that could be the same, because if they come out and say, give me the layout of the job site, you can pull out your JSA or JSHA, whatever the acronym is. I know there's multiple of these. Your job site hazard analysis form, I think that's really what it stands for. You can bring that out and it would be there, and everybody has seen that and signed off on it. So yes, that would work. All
right, this next one here, hopefully you'll be able to understand this one a little better. It's asking if we can create similar to the safety lessons via our app, if we can create lessons where they can create their on-site safety plan. Not sure.
Yes. So if you have an on-site safety plan that you want to download to the app, yeah, just show me what it is and I can download it. If it's my plan that we've tweaked a little bit, great, let's do that. You just call me in-house in the office, ask for Rick or me or whoever, and what we'll do is we'd love to make sure we take care of you on that note. The answer cannot be no, right? If you have a need out there, our job is to solve it, and that's what we're really good at. So you just want to call us in-house and explain a little bit more what you're looking at, and we can take care of you. That's not a problem at all, Rick. Not a problem.
Great. Well, that appears to be the last one here.
That's it, Rick?
Well, I have some that, maybe we'll address them in another webinar. This is all due to the fact that this one has run a little long. We know this is a great topic that you guys really seem to love, but we respect your time and don't want to take up your whole day. Maybe in one where we don't have as many other questions, I'll refer to some of these. Otherwise, I can maybe email some of these folks back with the answers to the question. But for the sake of time, Michael, I think we're going to go ahead and sign off. We're over 40 minutes. And
over 40 minutes, yeah, we're getting long.
Yes. But so thanks again, folks. And Michael, some last words?
I do have some last words, Rick. If you have any problems that you need taken care of when it comes to safety or Cal OSHA, we would love to be the solution for you. If you do have a workers' comp agent that really is admiring what you're doing or is it not, we would love you to tell them about them. We would love to talk to your workers' comp agents. Please feel free to refer them to us and tell them about what we're doing for you. We've got some special things for workers' comp agents that they're going to be in love with. But what we really want to say is thank you for your business, and if you need anything, me and my team are standing by to take care of you and to answer any questions you have. Thank you for everything you do.
Thanks a lot. Yes, we really appreciate you supporting the webinars and supporting EEAP. And we'll talk to you guys next month.
Thank you.
Thanks.